Friends, this is the third lecture in the series on managerial sociology, and this lecture deals with uh, formal and informal organizations, and therefore this lecture will focus on two things: line and staff, which are part of formal organizations, and informal organizations. It will also talk about interaction between formal and informal organizations, and I will give you some examples of how informal organizations affect or interact with the formal organizations to produce the outcome of the organization. Friends, let me share my slides. The presentation will take about 35 minutes. And later on, if you are interested in more details, you can see the slides. Slides will contain more and in-depth information on the subject. So, talking about formal and informal organization, I have taken help from certain resources, and these resources are from sociology, such as a classic book by Kingsley Davis, Human Society, a book by Alex Inkells, What is Sociology, Adjoni, Modern Organizations, and a classic book in the field of industrial sociology, which is by D.C. Miller and W.H. Fogg, Industrial Sociology. When I read this book, I find that the book is still very relevant and very useful for students of industrial sociology and management. And there are some articles from different journals, like this informal social organization in the army. This is a very important article to understand nature of organization in the army or nature of organization in general. There are some other articles like organizational stories, one means of moving the informal organization during change efforts. This was published in Public Administration Quarterly in 1986. And there are some books from management which I have used in preparing this lecture. Now, the first question which will come to your mind is, what is an organization? For Oxford Dictionary, it is a term used first time by Human Relations School for the managerial blueprint, organizational chart, or chain of authority, and communication in an organization. So three things: blueprint, chart, chain of authority, and also communication in an organization. Communication, not in itself, but communication flows through certain positions, and the structure of those positions would be an organization. Then, following David Silverman, the dictionary says that they arise, means organizations arise at ascertainable moment in time as artifacts. They exhibit patterns of social interaction which are less taken for granted than in non-formal organizations such as family, which organizational participants often seek to coordinate and control, and consequently, considerable attention is paid to the nature of these social relations and to plant changes in them. Organization theories include scientific theories, human relations theories, and newly emerging postmodern theories. There are two other sociological definitions which you may find interesting. Adjoni says that organizations are social units predominantly oriented to the attainment of specific goals. So that means that they are deliberate, they are voluntary, they are man-made, and they are made for a certain purpose. Today, organizations have become very important in our society. In a traditional society, organizations were perhaps not so important, although economic, political, and religious, pilgrimage, and many things had to be organized. But organizations are playing an important role in our society. We live in an organization society. So there is a term for modern day society. It is organization society. We live in an organization society in which all our needs are satisfied within certain organizations. Example, we are born in hospitals, which are organizations. They are created deliberately to attain certain goals, and goals relate to health. Educated in schools. Schools are also organizations. Schools are not like family, or they are not natural. They are not creative. They are formed deliberately, and along with their formation comes a structure of roles within them. The people occupying different positions in the organization need to play those roles. Work in offices, factories, which are organizations. We recreate in water parks, that is also an organization. You have several roles in organizing water parks. There are several roles, and all societies have had organizations. Yet the modern society differs from the earlier ones in terms of number, size, and scope of organizations. For Urvik, organization means dividing up of all the activities which are necessary to any purpose and arranging them in groups which are assigned to individuals. So there are some main purposes for which organizations are made. There are some specific targets and some specific activities to be performed. They are assigned to different people according to their qualifications, interests, and availability. And there is also an element of coordination and control. So an aspect of power, authority, which ensures that the people which are assigned different roles in the organization perform them efficiently. All organizations have therefore goals. And this goal part is so important that you can easily see the distinction between an organization and an institution like family. Family has no specific goals to achieve. Family members are bound by emotions, and each other's satisfaction is aimed for, but family is not created for attain certain goals, which organizations like industrial plants or WHO or non-profit organizations, sometimes movements are created to attain. A chief of coordination committee and a general secretary, divisions and subdivisions, administrative divisions, financial division, experts in respective fields, specialized agencies, communication channels, and communication vertical as well as horizontal, and feedback and evaluation, and grievance redressal or conflict resolution mechanism. All these are part of an organization. All these constitute an organization. There are functional divisional matrix, and there are matrix or organizations, there are flat organizations. Organizations are often divided into three types. Organizations which have functional divisions, matrix form, and flat organizations. Generally, non-government organizations are flat, and when different people are assigned different roles in different parts of the organization, you have a matrix form of organization. And the traditional form of organization is functional division, departments, etc. To follow Miller and form industrial society or organizations are the effective ways of getting things most efficiently. For coordination of efforts of more and more people, allowing authority to some, delegating to others, those people who have authority. Director of an educational institution has the authority, but he often delegates his authority to deans, dean of administration, dean of academics, dean of faculty affairs, dean of infrastructure, and so on, dispersing functions to still others. And sometimes some functions may even be outsourced to experts or other organizations. Today, all major organizations interact with a large number of other organizations and outsource their activities. Actually, today's organizations, great organizations of today, are organizations of organizations. The organization which will send a satellite today interacts with thousands of organizations from different countries to organize its activities. And WHO as an organization interacts with thousands of organizations to attain its goals. Organization consists of routine that group members display in their behavior towards each other. Organizations have a long history. Although I said that we live in a society which is organization society, but it's not that in traditional society or in ancient society there were no organizations. One example of organizations is that there were organizations of a large number of people which built pyramids. Single individuals would not have built pyramids. For building pyramids, you required organizations to collect the material, to construct them, to maintain them, to design them. Different people must have been involved, and there must have been a very good organization to build pyramids. There were, however, few organizations and created by the nobles as per their own requirement. Konark Temple or Puri Temple, they must have been built by an organization, not by saying nobles or kings or priests could not individually build such huge structures, because in building of these huge structures you require different types of resources and different types of skills which had to be organized. They required charismatic leaders, nobles, traditions, shape them. Industrial organizations are, however, bureaucratic according to rules. Different people play different roles according to rules, require a huge organization with the corresponding distribution of authority. And globalization today is producing organizations of organizations such as United Nations, WHO, UNDP, Population Council, or even Cafe Coffee Day is one such global organization. And the organization of Cafe Coffee Day in different countries, the culture, and quite often the output or services provided, they are all really identical in all the countries. In modern society, organizing a project, for example, launching a satellite, requires coordination between thousands of organizations in different countries, universities, labs, suppliers, expertise, governments, and space organizations and scientists, computer simulations, mathematicians, physicists, chemical engineers, mechanical engineers. So many people have to work together to launch a satellite. The organization of an organization should show a line of authority. Now, in organizations, at least the way organizations are defined in a modern society, there is a line of authority. Line of authority means placing different positions one above the another in terms of power. So, for example, in WHO, there is Director General at the top. Director General is at the top, most powerful person. Then Director General is assisted by Deputy Director General. Or in our country, there is a Labor Commissioner. Labor Commissioner is assisted by Assistant Labor Commissioners. Assistant Labor Commissioners are assisted by regional or zonal commissioners. And there are labor inspectors, and there are staff, and there are experts, and there are others. So it's a huge organization, and there is a hierarchy of power. In WHO, Director General, Deputy Director General, health emergencies. Then there are 9 divisions under DDG or Deputy Director General, and 2 under health emergencies. Under any DDG, you have external relations and governance, business operations, data analytics and deliveries for impact, chief scientist and science division, and access to health, medicines and health products. Under health emergencies, again, you have emergency response and emergency preparedness. And WHO organization is given on net. You can see it and see the clear hierarchy. Target person's hierarchy of pattern variables can also be applied to organization. There is a socialization aspect of organization, there is integration aspect of organization, there is goal attainment aspect of organization, and there is adaptation or economic aspect of any organization. I have given some examples. For example, in socialization, the same persons which join other organizations also join Tata organization. But in Tata groups, sexual harassment is not tolerated. The moment a person joins, he is socialized or she is socialized in this way that they will not indulge or accept the cases of sexual harassment. Zero tolerance policy, which is not always true for all the organizations. The organogram or the authority structure of an organization may look like this: at the top, president, then vice president, then division chiefs, then department chiefs, then 3 foremen, a number of foremen for different workshops, and below them or at the bottom are workers who are working in different labs, different departments. And there are also executives. President is overall, who give the direction, and executives actually execute the work. They are, truly speaking, executives are the administrative heads of the organization. So there is a board for a university, for IITs, for IIM, there is a board of organization, and there are presidents who are often renowned people from industry, but executive is the director, and below the director, then deputy directors and dean. And there is, all organizations have a culture, material culture and technical culture, social organization, power groupings, organization of managers and workers, and communication. All of them have to communicate directly and indirectly and through media, through telephones, through emails, through WhatsApp groups. And so there is a complex pattern of interaction. Normally, we expect that executives will interact with vice president with division, but in practice, you can find that several workers are directly, formally or informally, communicating with the executives. Organizations have a line and staff. Line refers to the line of authority, and staff are specialists. You also need specialists. You need, say, manufacturing organization will not only need engineers and diploma holders and foremen and workers at different levels. It will also require an accountant, a chartered accountant, a legal expert, and to maintain their gardens, malis, and some people through whom they can connect with the state or political party. Now, these other types of services are provided through staff. Line refers to the line of authority, which is central to an organization, and staff includes specialists for research, hiring, training. Normally, a scientist or a specialist for research would not be the head or executive of the organization. Hiring, for recruiting, for training, for keeping financial records, for selling, for building rapport with political parties and state. There are several models or several ways in which line and staff can be integrated. A line official has several staff assistants advising him on policy. This is one model. Another model, that a high staff official may direct the staff organization. Third, that specialists may occupy positions as line managers. And fourth, staff is given authority under certain conditions to insert order into line organization. There are three types of organizations: publicly held, privately held, and non-profit. Public held, there are some examples of publicly held organizations such as IBM, Xerox, Ford. The main goal is to increase profit for the shareholders. Blue chip companies in India, and I have shown 12 blue chip companies in India. They are publicly held companies. Then there are ventures and agent capital. There are privately held organizations. In privately held organizations, satisfaction of the owner matters the most, including anything from an individually owned house, painting business, to a large partnership employing hundreds of workers such as malls, cinema halls, property dealers. These concepts are ideal types, however, Max Weber's ideal type. While the practices differ, I asked a young IAS officer, IAS officer is working in a formal organization with a clear structure, clear line, clear authority pattern, but you see how there is also a pattern which is often found in private organizations. I asked a young IAS officer, how is corruption viewed in the system? And his answer was that corruption is not an issue. What matters is your effectiveness in attaining the goal of the minister, which may sometimes be to show him as an honest leader. And then the question arises, is he really working for a private company or a government company with a formal organization, a state organization? Actually, in practice, in any organization, you can see the overlapping of ideal types of both formal and informal, and public and private. Non-profit organizations, colleges, universities, government, it's to provide services and not to make money. And this includes those organizations which run on donations. I have worked with several such NGOs, and over time NGOs also develop a formal structure, but they are different from others, especially in the sense that they do not work for money or profit, and they work for certain values. And so colleges, universities, But there are private sector colleges and private sector universities, which in some countries at some point of time are also interested in making money. Now our new education policy discourages establishing universities and colleges for money. Whatever they earn, whatever they earn, they must invest in the development of education itself. And there are new types of organizations like CSR, NGOs such as Global 2000, based in Austria, an international network of environment and NGO movements. Now, what is informal organization? I said that in this lecture, I will distinguish between formal and informal. Informal organization constitutes, actually, in simple terms, I can say that organization is created to attain certain goals. And to run the organization, you need people. But when people come together, they also form certain kinds of organizations to satisfy their own personal, individual needs. Religious organization, spiritual organization, political organization, cliques, groups, and so on. These are informal organizations. So informal organization constitutes that network of personnel and social relations which are not defined or prescribed by formal organization. Informal, yet it to be called informal organization, it must interact with the formal organization in the fulfillment of the goals of the organization or in the blockage. Informal organization refers to the form of social relationships which individuals working in a formal organization develop over time as individuals with their own needs, interests, attitudes, beliefs, and values. There are primary groups, cliques. Primary means small, face-to-face, cliques, congeniality groups that develop in shop or office, folkways, modes, norms, and values which guide the behavior of the members. There are 9 sociological assumptions about groups. You can, and these assumptions are from Miller and Form. You can read them later. And to quote Miller and Form, informal organization consists of a number of things. It is composed of the animosities and friendships. While you are working in any organization, maybe financial, maybe educational, maybe religious, maybe political, not all the workers, not all the co-workers become your friends. Some are friends, some are foes. Apna paraya. You know, this is a natural tendency among human beings to trust some and distrust others. So it is composed of animosities and friendships among the people who work together. It contains primary groups, cliques, congeniality groups that develop in shop or office. So formal, informal, and both of them together affect the effectiveness of the organization. This is by definition. So those informal relationships which do not affect effectiveness of the organization need not be part of informal organization. Informal activity and to distinguish between informal activity and informal organization, going for lunch or conversing about films is an informal activity, but it may not be considered as part of informal organization of work. If some clerks are sitting together while taking lunch and talking about films, it's an informal activity, but it's not part of informal organization unless or till this kind of activity affects the overall productivity or the work of the organization. Normally, informal activity facilitates morale. Indirectly, informal activities sometimes indirectly affect work because it facilitates morale, it recreates, it creates team spirit, participation in trade union activities, and cooperation among workers and managers and between managers and workers. If a formal unit has 2 or more trade unions, which trade union you will join, that depends heavily on your association, informal associations with certain kinds of people. Unless it can be shown that it disturbs the work, informal activities are not discouraged normally. And yet, researchers have focused on interaction between formal and informal organization. According to Richard Pettinger, informal exerts a strong influence over the formal. So, formal organization, let me repeat, formal organization is created consciously, deliberately, through planning, through thinking, to attain certain goals. That if we have to attain these goals, these activities will have to be performed, and these types of people will perform them in the organization, or these services will be obtained from other organizations. Maybe certain services will be outsourced, and maybe for certain activities, some experts and some staff will have to be appointed. Informal comes into being because people have certain basic cultural, emotional, social needs, need for affiliation, and people come in a metropolitan city, people coming from the same region, people belonging to the same caste, or people having similar views, people having similar activities, similar interests in sports, hockey or cricket or football, they start mixing together, and that becomes informal organization. Or those people who have interest in films, they form one group. Those people who have interest in cricket, they form another group. But after the groups have been formed, they also start talking about things which connect with organization or organization outcome. And in that sense, informal organizations can affect the output of the formal organization. According to Thomas Bateman, employees who engage in formal and informal networks are more likely to perform at higher levels. Those who are isolated, alienated, those who do not mix with anyone, there are other factors remaining same, a very good phrase from economics, other factors remaining same. They are not likely to be as productive. They will also not be as destructive, but they will not be so active as people who are part of some informal organization. They find and use diverse and valuable information from different parts of the organization to do their jobs better. According to Peter Nordhaus, women confront greater barriers to establish informal mentor relationships than men do. Women are disproportionately represented in business positions that are less visible, have less responsibility. Now, there are some segments of informal organization one can talk about. Congeniality groups such as gangs, friendship, and cliques. Cliques means they are exclusive. They will avoid people belonging to other cliques or other groups. A strong sense of apna and paraya, own and others. Then an organization which defines the relationships between these groups, rights, obligations. In informal organization, also certain kind of cultural and social structure of rights, obligations, prestige, influence develops. In kitty party, all the women participants are not equally important, and they differ in terms of prestige. In political party, all the political workers or all the MLAs or all the MPs or all the Rajya Sabha members are not equally important, and they wield different degrees of influence, and they enjoy different amount of prestige. They have different obligations, and they have different rights inside the party. Internal and external codes which regulate their activities within the informal social organization and between formal organization and formally or informally organized outgroups. So there are internal and external codes, rules, rules of the game which regulate their activities, something similar to what we call norms in society. And there are schemes of ideas, beliefs, and values which underlie or support the above codes, such as folk knowledge, prejudices, stereotypes, myths, and ideologies which give meaning to occurrences. I feel a need to explain all these terms separately, but that will make the lecture longer. So I am avoiding that. There are ceremonies, rites, gambling, recreation, swearing, and joking. There are ceremonies in any organization. In any, particularly in informal organization, there are certain rites, maybe foundation day, activities of foundation day, there may be gambling, recreation. NGOs may take their members sometimes for recreation to any tourist place. There are swearing ceremonies when we swear in the name of the organization, and joking, to keep the atmosphere relaxed and to maintain motivation among the people, workers. That we are great, strong identity. NGOs survive on strong identity. I work for this NGO. I'm very proud that I work for this NGO. If I work for the Banwasi Seva Ashram, a Gandhian organization of Mirzapur, actually I have always mentioned that I have worked for Banwasi Seva Ashram, Mirzapur. I feel, A.K. Sharma feels more proud of associating with NGO like Banwasi Seva as compared to my association with IIT. So NGOs thrive on strong identities and values, goals. And to use Max Weber's terms, NGOs are more value rational organizations. They are not deliberately created organizations for economic, political, or social activities. And informal organizations have communication groups which inform members of ideas, sentiments, and occurrences, both ideas and sentiments, mental models, cognitive processes, emotions, spirituality, everything is involved in informal organization, and occurrences vital to group solidarity and action. Examples: tea groups, groups of cricket fans, women colleagues in an organization. Organizations, women feel that the organizations are sexist, and they may share their issues, cases of harassment, develop strategies to fight them. There are chit fund groups within the formal organization. There are picnic groups, film groups, groups of people subscribing to different political ideologies. So today in India, within a large organization, you can find people divided according to caste, religious ideology, and so on. There are organizations which support BJP. There are organizations which support Congress Party. There are organizations which support AAP. There are organizations which support BSP. There are members of Ambedkar Sabha, and there are those more interested in things like Ram Janmabhoomi and building temples and supporters of RSS type. So there are all kinds of informal organizations within a formal organization. There are also cultural groups which celebrate, say, Ramjan or Muharram or Ganesh Puja, and they include managers. These activities often include managers and union leaders. I remember that in IIT, when certain groups of people who came from Maharashtra or that side celebrated Ganesh Puja, our director would always attend the Ganesh Puja Similarly, when Bengalis celebrate Durga Puja, Kali Puja, director will come. So that way, there is lot of commonness, or there is interaction between formal and informal organization. How informal organization affects formal organization or activity? In one of our researches, we found that women faculty take longer time for promotion through the academic, though the academic norms are universalistic. In all, we have done some research on IITs and other good universities and find that women faculty take longer time. These are centers of excellence, and norms do not discriminate between men and women. Women have less students, less papers, less projects, less visibility. There are informal groups of PhD students who tell the new students that women faculty are not good as guides, and tell horror stories of students who had worked under their supervision in the past. There are then there are T groups of faculty members where decisions regarding the next dean, means administrators, etc., are taken. And for various reasons, one simple reason is to avoid sexist jokes which are cut in such T group discussions or tea rooms. They are not, so women are not joined by, women do not join such tea groups, and because male faculty cut crude and sexist jokes, and women are not ready to accept that. Women do not go for night shows, pictures, where on the way, but in the bus, many significant organizational decisions are taken. So faculty members quite democratically may arrive at some understanding of who should be the next dean. But women are not there because they do not go for night shows. So women are isolated from formal decision-making process. So this way, I gave this as an example of how informal groups interact with formal organization. Sometimes NGOs are also called movements. I said that there are three types of organizations: publicly held, blue chip companies are example of that, then privately held, and there are NGOs. Some examples of NGOs from the places where I work in Lucknow, Kanpur, Manvodeh, which aims at mobilization. It's an organization which works at mobilization, communication, behavioral change communication in rural areas. Baj Mein Khwateen, an organization of Muslim women which works for the empowerment of Muslim women. All India Muslim Women Personal Law Board, which is an organization but also a movement, because its aim is to empower Muslim women and to send them to schools and to have a liberal interpretation of the Holy Quran. Similarly, Bharatiya Muslim Mahila Andolan, then Manav Shiksha Sansthan, which is very well known all over India for value education. They are a movement, they have popularized value education, and today in our country, in more and more engineering colleges, medical colleges, and management colleges, value education has become a compulsory subject. So this Manav Shiksha Sansthan, which was created as a small NGO, has actually become a movement and changed the values of the engineering, medical, and management education. Similarly, there is Shramik Bharati for empowerment of people in Kanpur. Some formal organizations depend on informal organization heavily. An example is that one of my students has worked on chikankari work in Lucknow, organizations for chikankari work in Lucknow, and the places where you go for buying chikankari work, they are formal organizations, but they take work from workers at the grassroots level who are informal workers. They have no education, no awareness, and their wages are extremely low, and they belong to the extremely poor section of society. Formal organizations distribute work among them and collect the final product, then further improvise on products and sell them in the market at higher prices. There is a formal organization. SEWA can be called a formal organization, Self-Employed Women's Association, SEWA in Lucknow, which is organizing chikankari work. SEWA is a formal organization, but in most cases, embroidery work, actual embroidery work is done through informal assignments at the household level among the poor workers. Many leaders in industry and administration rely on chamchas and informers, and this is informal. Bateman says that informal appraisal and feedback are taking place constantly. They are selected on the basis of values and beliefs, social stereotypes and other social factors, and sometimes needs. Researchers have shown that they should better be selected from other groups. Yeah, this is an advice for you that if you work as manager in some organization, you should mix up with all kinds of people. That will make you more effective. Because if you mix up only with people belonging to your background, then all others will become suspicious of you. So, and they will isolate. They will become separated or alienated from you. They occupy status position in the formal group and have their information and resource network. Attitude towards minorities, women, and other ethnic groups and other beliefs affect. Why I'm writing this affect diversity? Because diversity is one of the main goals nowadays. Corporate social responsibility, diversity. These goals are assigned to all types of organizations. And wrong attitude towards minorities, women, and other ethnic groups and other beliefs of that kind affect diversity. They are generated, maintained, and passed on to new members in the informal groups. So be careful. This affects the recruitment, performance, appraisals, and promotion. Groups which organize Satyanarayana Katha, ISKCON activities in industry, service, create such ideologies which prevent spread of Marxist or revolutionary or true labor interest ideas. Joking relations affect motivation to work. For example, in IIT, a studious student may be called a Maggu and induced to follow group norms regarding his studies and leisure, affecting his academic performance. There are also positive effects of informal organization. A sense of it generates a sense of competition among informal groups to excel over others. A group arranges a lot of social functions which recreates you and raises your motivation and all measures of your outcome or productivity. These activities are sports, picnics, puja. In army, in my interviews with army officers, I learned something interesting, and that I want to share for you. That in army, soldiers die for the prestige of their unit, not so much for Bharat Mata. Whatever their unit is in which they are working, the pride of that unit, the belongingness to that unit, that our unit is great, our unit has in the past made so many sacrifices, our unit is more patriotic and more sacrificing and more dedicated, more committed than other units is the main factor. The negative effects of informal organization can result into a wildcat strike, unexpected. Union member may not respond to discipline imposed by the officers. Sudden organization of union and managers remain unknown to unrest. Sudden rise in absenteeism rumors doing damage to organization. Still, you have to take care of the rumor part, or when or grapevine part, and stealing, destruction, sabotage. This can become a norm in the informal organization. A brawl in executive conference between two groups because they belong to two different informal groups and hate each other or differ so much from each other that they start fighting. The last point is how to study informal organizations. Formal organizations are easy to study. There are well-defined statuses, roles, and focus on social relations, how people react to each other, listen to what they say or do, ideas, beliefs, and attitudes. Do not yourself become a factor in the situation. Use questionnaires and use qualitative. For formal organizations, psychologists generally use quantitative method of survey, but for informal organization, you need qualitative method. Some social factors which affect formation of or informal work are age, gender, caste, regional, linguistic affiliation, religion, and length of service. So this is what I wanted to say about formal and informal organization, and I stop here. In the next lecture, we will talk about something about leadership or something more interesting about the organizations. All aspects of organizations are interesting to study, but let me summarize that I have distinguished between formal organization, which is created deliberately, consciously for attainment of the goals of the social group, which has come together to attain certain purposes, and informal organization is that kind of organization or association or structure which develops within the organization. A large number of such informal organizations develop because they satisfy the personal needs of the members of the organization, and this happens on the basis of age, gender, religiosity, caste, region, linguistic groups, and so on, and interests: films, cricket, hockey, Bollywood. And experts of formal organization need to pay good attention to the informal organization, because working of informal organization or the attitudes formed there, attitude towards work, attitude towards others, attitude towards seniors, all of them affect the final product of the organization. And I also made a small comment. Due to shortage of time, I could not talk much in detail, that while formal organizations are studied by using the psychological method of survey, a quantitative method, informal organizations are better studied by using qualitative methods of narrative. Thank you very much.